Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in today's video, sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms, I kind of can't believe it, but some of the things that I've been talking about for a while are getting addressed, and they're getting addressed in a big way. We're looking at the size of Imperium Kingdoms, the ease of acquiring complete armament sets and working on formations, and so much more. So use the timestamps down below in the description to jump to whichever part you'd like. And let's go in order with this face-to-face with the developers. The first question is a good one. What are your future plans for armaments? And look, in my experience, I would say that it takes a long time and a lot of randomness as to whether or not you can get what you want for a formation. So they say, we plan on adding a new armament conversion feature in January of 2025. This new feature will allow you to spend materials to convert existing armaments into new ones, making it easier and more cost-effective to develop new formations without starting from scratch. So this is something I've been saying in videos, is that, like, realistically, it takes 1 to 2 years to get a formation up and running. So when the developers launch new mechanics, which is really exciting, it takes so long that they've been releasing the armaments. For example, we got new armaments, a new formation for combo, right? Like, but there's no commanders where it makes any sense to use them on. So the thing the developers have been doing is sort of giving it to us way in advance. And if you're speculatory, you get rewarded. But I think you should be rewarded for being strategic more than speculatory. They say, so for example, you can convert the Wedge Armament Honors of the Pantheon into the Arch Armament Emblem of the North. So basically, whatever slot the armament is in, you can convert it to the exact same slot for another formation. Once converted, the armament's rare and special inscriptions will be adjusted to match the new formation. This is really exciting. So I think the thing you would do here is you would work on one formation, accumulate a bunch of stuff, and then switch it to the other formation when that lands, so that you've got like your good armaments kind of ready to go. And the higher the rarity and number of inscriptions, the more items you'll need for the conversion. The required items can be acquired through KVK events and in-game bundles. So here they use the word spend materials, but they, I think, do not mean materials in its direct translation, which would be what you use for making equipment. I think they mean items. And when they say the required items can be acquired through KVK events and in-game bundles, I think this means that the majority of them, well, who knows? But I would assume they're coming from the in-game bundles if you're trying to rush. That's typically the case. But I don't think it's the 3 currencies we have today, which is what I sort of would have initially assumed. I don't think it's this silver coin. I don't think it's the gold coin. And I don't think it's the inscription shards. I think it's some new item that you can obtain. Okay? Unless they're making it, no. And I don't think so. So new item will let you convert. And I think that anything faster than what it takes today and cheaper than starting from scratch to build a new set is going to be a huge win. And just for perspective, right? Like, you know, as I've worked on Arch and we look at, well, gee, like, what rare inscriptions do you have? I have 1 rare inscription here. It's not in use. All right. And then if we look at this slot, I have 4 with the rare inscription, right? And it just feels not amazing that it's all just benched, or I've re-rolled it a bunch and it failed, and, right? And to be able to potentially do something with these would be a huge win. I assume your stats would convert over as well. So if that's true, which I assume it is, then in that instance, like, if this has, you know, these cavalry stats and I swing it over to a new formation, I assume those stats would carry over. But, you know, you end up with all this stuff that you can't really enjoy. And it'd be really cool if there was a way to convert it into something you can enjoy. So I think that's a solid change. Like, this could become really interesting for a new formation, whatever. You get the idea here, all right? And let's get a look at what's next. I think this is great. I think in general, the formation system should continue to get love. And, you know, one thing I'll point out is that I've spent over 200 transmutation stones on this armament, And over 150 of them have been trying to get this 1.7 defense to not be 1.7 defense, something higher, and they all failed. Which, like, it's a jaw-dropping amount of commitment to do the thing. So I would actually like to see them push even further with, like, for example, every time you transmute, if you don't get a new stat, your stats go up by 0.1, right? Like, if you don't accept the reroll, you get a boost to your stat or something, right? Like, that way, even when you have a catastrophic failure, which has been my experience, you're still getting value. So I think it is awesome the developers are pushing on armaments to make it so you can go faster into a new formation. And I would just continue to push on the experience of armaments. So cool, cool, cool. Will you add the ability to revoke vacation permits? After launching the vacation permit feature, we noticed some permits were issued by mistake. In an upcoming update, we'll add a revoke option, allowing kings to cancel permit. Hey, vacation canceled. What's more, we're adding a new perk for governors who are on vacation. If you have a vacation permit, you'll need fewer passport pages than usual to migrate, which I think makes a lot of sense. I think that the core issue being addressed here is making it so that kingdoms and players can be lean and true to their actual punching power. Without making it so you have to zero everybody, which has been the case. And in many ways does continue to be the case, with the exception of these people who have a vacation permit. The threshold for becoming an Imperium Kingdom in Season of Conquest feels way too low. Are there any plans to adjust it? So for those that don't know, today, the top, I think, 24 kingdoms by power, and that's the power of the top 300 governors in the kingdom, determine whether or not your kingdom is Imperium, okay? And today, it's just top 24 kingdoms determine where that barrier is for Imperium. And if you wanted to see, well, how does that actually exactly work? You'd zoom all the way out, you go to Kingdom Overview, and you tap on the little Imperium icon, and it'll explain here, right? So it basically limits people's ability to migrate to a kingdom. And this is so that the biggest kingdoms don't keep getting too big. And historically, this has been problematic for the game, where it's very hard to make balanced KVKs when some number of kingdoms are just massively bigger than all the others, all right? And it's funny, my restart actually flipped Imperium. So this is relevant to us, even as we speak. And we flipped Imperium not because we did a bunch of training, but because other kingdoms lost a bunch of power. And the issue with Imperium is that the threshold has gone down and 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 down. And it only continues to go down, which means these large communities are in many ways dying. Like, they can only get smaller, or their players have to delete troops, or all of these deep anti-patterns where, like, is it fun to delete your troops in a game where the whole point is to train troops and use them in KVK? No. That is definitively anti-player, right? But, you know, making it so that you can have fair KVKs is obviously very pro-player. So let's look at what happens here. So the cap on same season immigration for Imperium kingdoms will be reduced to 150 governors per season. All right, that feels still like a really high number. Like, that's a whole alliance worth of governors. We're adding a new kingdom power threshold. If an Imperium kingdom's power drops below this threshold, its immigration cap will no longer be fixed at 35 million. Huh. So I guess that means you could bring people in? Is that right? The number of Imperium kingdoms in the Season of Conquest will remain the same. So we still have 24 of them. Since the international and China servers have different ecosystems, we'll set separate kingdom power thresholds for each. Currently, the kingdom power threshold is set at 23 billion. For international servers and 24 billion for China servers. These adjustments are a first step. We might fine-tune them further. Once we finalize the changes and release date, we'll notify everyone via in-game mail. So the top 24 kingdoms, measured by the top 300 players in each kingdom by power, determines if you're Imperium. But if you're below the power threshold, which will be 23 billion, you could still migrate in players? Does that sound right? I thought special immigration points were sort of supposed to address this, but it sounds like they're making it so you can bring in a bunch of people. I have to see this in action, but I think generally speaking, doing things to keep your communities healthy without making it so that they can just continue to steamroll their size advantage is a win. And if this accomplishes that, that's also a huge win. I think right now the Imperium threshold, I haven't looked, but it's got to be closer to like 21 or 22 billion. Like it's a low number. So this will probably make it so that all of the kingdoms around that bubble of that 23 billion number and being Imperium aren't kind of strangled by the nature of that system, which I think would be a good thing. Like you want to stop the highest kingdoms from becoming too big without making the bubble kingdoms unable to grow, which is kind of where it's at. Okay, so this should hopefully address that. Players are abusing targeted immigration to enter new kingdoms. Will you fix this? Targeted immigration was originally designed to help returning players find kingdoms where they could thrive and reconnect with the community. However, some players have exploited this feature to gain unfair advantages, making life harder for native players in new kingdoms. This goes against what we intended. In 1.0.89, scheduled for mid-December, we'll be tweaking the rules for targeted immigration so that it better serves returning players while minimizing disruptions to new kingdoms. Yeah, at the end of the day, the new player experience has to be sacred. If new players don't get to the end game, the game will die. So it is critical that the new player experience is protected above all other things. Will the passport page automatic restock feature mentioned the last face-to-face of the developers cost Alliance credits? Is the stock of passport pages between all Alliance members shared? We apologize for not previously clarifying the details of this feature and for any confusion it may have caused. Here's a clear breakdown of the feature. In alliances with a member limit of 100 or more, a weekly limit section will be added to the shop. This section will be automatically restocked with a certain number of passport pages each week. This process won't cost any Alliance credits. Alliance members can purchase them using individual credits. Any unpurchased passport pages will be stored in the Alliance shop, but there's a cap on how many can be stored. The stock of items in the weekly limit section is exclusive to each governor. Other Alliance members purchasing items will not affect the stock available to you. This is really great, and it's addressing a problem that I have pointed to for a very, very, very long time, which is that if you're in a meta alliance, you can't put anything in this shop other than maybe a few teleports, and otherwise all your alliance's credits need to go towards building forts, okay? I'll give you a KVK update in a little bit, but like I'm a part of a fort wall, like over here, and we've got a whole bunch of forts, and like this is what you're supposed to do with your alliance credits. You do not have credits to goof around with the shop, but it doesn't make any sense because like there's a ton of fantastic things to go and get in the alliance shop, okay? So I don't want to show how many alliance credits we have, but you see the shop is empty. And the shop is empty because your alliance officers are actually deeply incompetent if they put stuff in this shop. Because you need those credits to do things you need to do in war. And it just is what it is. So, and of course, you put, periodically some civ swaps for, rally these garrisons, periodically teleports. Like, you can't just stock the shop. So players end up with all these credits and nothing to spend them on. And I have tons of these. Tons! I mean, I could exchange so much for credits, right? So this entire overflow progression system is basically dead on arrival because you can't actually do anything with it. So this completely flips it on its head and says, okay, actually, you will have a shop. That shop will be individual to you, and you'll use this currency to get the stuff from your individual shop, which is a huge win. We have this in Call of Dragons specifically for passports to migrate to other kingdoms. And I think in Call of Dragons, there's some number of passports that are restocked each week, and there could be an upwards of, I think, 5 or so weeks worth of those passports just sitting there waiting for you to purchase them, something like that. So pretty cool. Love this feature. It's addressing a problem that I think for a long time has been something I've pointed to as like, why do I have over these individual credits? Can we do something with this overflow progression system? And here we are. And honestly, like, I think this is really, really great. I am very happy about everything that's in here. And like, you can hear I'm like a little bit like I told you so. It's very vindicating to be like, I've been saying we need this. And here we are. Honestly, like, hey, I got ideas for things we could do with this game. Will there be commander swap event mentioned in the offline meetup? If so, when will it go live? Oh yeah. So there was a meetup Meetups are insanely cool. I've had the pleasure of being invited to like a couple of these, and it was so amazing. Big thank you to the makers of Rise of Kingdoms for inviting me to those events. And in one of those events, they mentioned a commander swap. Our plan for this event has been finalized. It'll be launched in a future version. Rather than adding a direct commander reset event, we'll be granting each participating governor 2 commander swaps at a certain cost. Well, I wonder what that means, at a certain cost. Each swap allows you to choose 2 commanders with some exceptions. So maybe like Minamoto, Ethelfled. What about gold key commanders? And swap their levels, skill levels, and star levels. To help new players catch up on developing their commanders before entering the Season of Conquest, we plan to launch this event in the New Kingdom starting around the end of Season 2 of the Lost Kingdom. Each character can participate once. Now, if the goal is to help you for Season of Conquest, I think this is potentially a miss. You need to have access. As long as you have access to meta commanders, it's fine. But I don't know how at the end of Season 2 you would have those meta commanders. So someone help me out with what I'm missing here. Like for this to be really good, you must have access to meta commanders. In addition to this, we'll be introducing other events to help acquire Season of Conquest commanders. Oh, read the next line, Chisgule. Okay. So if you have access to those Season of Conquest commanders and then you swap to them, that's amazing. For kingdoms entering Season 3 or later, we plan on introducing or launching a one-time event in January of 2025. Ooh. Wait. Season 3 or later, so that's everybody in Season 3 or Season of Conquest. Awesome. Once the specific launch schedule and event details are confirmed, we'll notify you through the community and in-game announcements page. So I'm going to point to something that I said a long time ago, and if this pans out, I'm going to look like a genius. You ready for this? See, what if I could take Charles Martel or Double C or any one of these gold key commanders, okay? And I take all of their skills and I turn them into, let's just pick a commander here. How about CY, right? The new Archer Garrison. Okay, so CY would be fully expertise, max level, and then Martel would be, in this example, and I don't know if this is exactly how it works, 1 star and no skills whatsoever. Okay, then I'd flip on over to my inventory, scroll on down, and if you see here, I've been holding on to all these sculptures. All the overflow sculptures. I always felt like the ruined Crusader Fort rebuilding overflow was like so small of a reward. I'd rather have these in my inventory as a trophy than actually convert them. Which for me feels like an opportunity to make that system more meaningful. But like, I have 1,772 Charles Martel sculptures. So could I swap everything over to CY and then instantly max Charles Martel all over again? Would be pretty sick. And I'd feel very rewarded as an endgame player and valued as a customer. I mean, like, I actually don't think that's terrible. And I think a lot of people would be excited, except for the fact that the ruined Crusader Fort system was driving you to sell off those sculptures. And the people who did would be kind of wrecked in that situation, except even then, assuredly you have at least 1 gold key commander you're not using that you could ditch all the sculptures on. Do you see what I mean? Like, even if you didn't max them again, why do I need Charles? I don't need him anymore. So like, I'm sure there's plenty of commanders you could do that with, even if you were starting them all over again and pulling them from gold keys, where like, if they let you do that, it would be super high value. Even if it's not that, like, how many of you have maxed a commander that's now completely worthless? Like, Harold Sigurdsson has no meta value right now, right? How about Cyrus the Great? No meta value. Even if I could take one of those and switch them over, that would be the fattest W. And what does it mean? It means I enjoy more commanders in the game. I just enjoy the game more. Like, it doesn't detract from my enjoyment of the game. It only enhances it if I can use different things. I genuinely, now I'm on a Chisgule rant, but like, I feel the same way of the equipment system. Like, I almost feel like with a reasonable length of cooldown, it would be worth giving players for free the ability to switch things around. Because like what would happen? Well, I'd enjoy the game more. Right? Because like I could, you know, if I didn't want to be an infantryman anymore, you know, instead of having to build a collection all over again, which I may or may not do, I could just switch everything over and just enjoy the archer stuff. If I want to do archers, or calves if I want to do calves. And, you know, you can't do that all that often. But by the way, I finished my set here and it is looking, I mean, hey, yo, rally it and find out. Back to the list. This change, I go on these like tangenty rants, but like all of these changes are fire. They're so exciting. This is awesome. I again have said for quite literally years that like I didn't think it was great for new players to have to hoard sculptures till the end game. It's an anti-pattern and like it's all getting addressed and I love this. So good. Can we get Epic Range Commander to help us with range play at a lower cost? Ooh, after the release of 1.0.89, we plan on introducing a new Epic Range Commander. Gunners in Season 2 and 3 and Season of Conquest will be able to obtain them. Awesome. Gold keys or silver keys? I save my gold keys for when new civilizations drop because inevitably there's an Epic Commander and a Legendary Commander that comes with it. So I think already you should be hoarding gold keys and silver keys unless you actively use gold key commanders for fighting, in which case open them because you need them. But otherwise, endgame players hoard, and now we get rewarded for that. I have actually quite literally, last I looked, 9,999 keys saved up for that, and 47,000 silver keys. So, like, yeah, I'll max them. Actually, I don't think when they drop a new civilization, I'll be able to max the new commander with those gold keys. It's not going to be enough, hilariously. All right, anyways, onward. What do we got here? Can you share your design philosophy for the next generation of commanders? Ooh. For the next generation of commanders, our goal is to be more consistent when adding new commanders, allowing you to better plan ahead. I have said for years, this would be so good for the game. The game design should send you in a direction and then reward you for doing it, right? Because this is a collection game. Yeah, you have KVK and you go to war. And like the collection for the sake of what? It's to win KVKs, at least to fight and enjoy KVKs, right? But to make collection rewarding, the things you collect need to be valuable. And they're valuable when they're good. And they're good when, through time, they deliver you some sort of value in war. So when you make equipment and armament and all those things into perpetuity, you should feel good for having done it. Okay? So this consistency covers things like whether or not the new commander will focus on single target or AoE skills, as well as the relationships between unit types and special mechanics. We'll also focus more on team composition. Now, what does team composition mean? Particularly the variety and fun of commanding multiple troops. I love the sound of that. I love the sound of that. But I don't know what it means. We aim to give both new and old commanders room to work together. I love this, ensuring lasting value, right? Like every time I invest in my collection, the game design should look for opportunities to reward me for having been a good collector, right? Like good player behavior should always be rewarded. And like investing in your account should, in my opinion, always be considered like good player behavior. We also plan to experiment with commanders that bring more innovative mechanics and gameplay. That sounds cool. I just hope it doesn't get too complicated because like sometimes I feel like I need a PhD in reportology to understand kind of how things work. Lastly, we understand that some governors are concerned about the amount and frequency of new systems. We want to reassure you that most of the major systems have already been developed. So moving forward, we'll be cautious in balancing the introduction of innovative new systems. Do they mean like the armament systems, like an innovative new system? With the cost of upgrading them, ensuring you can enjoy deeper strategic combat without feeling overwhelmed. I think that's cool. I think this is really, really important. This might genuinely be the single most important thing in this message, is they're basically saying, when you invest in something in this game, we want you to feel like it will be rewarded. And we want you to feel like even if it might not be meta now, there's a way for it to be meta again or relevant again and enjoyable again in the future. And I think we've seen that be really, really, really satisfying for players. Like the reuse of Alexander the Great with Liu Che has to be one of the most satisfying commander enjoyments. And you let me know in the comments. Is that not one of the most satisfying commander experiences you've had in the game? Discovering that your Alexander the Great was great again? Am I wrong? I think if you pay attention to what players are saying, which they're saying that hey, we're going to do that, like, this is really good. This is the most important thing, right? So when the game sends you to leadership commanders for the open field, it looks like they're going to continue to do that in a predictable way. And what's really interesting is whether or not they focus on single target or AoE skills. I saw Omniarch made a video about this as well, and he mentioned cavalry players. And, you know, I also have observed cavalry players get really frustrated where they're like, where's my AoE damage, bro? I want AoE damage. And like, of course they do. So this is cool. This is very cool. Like, so what could that predictability be? Single target versus AoE, garrison versus rally, open field, right? And then the big question mark for me is, well, like, does that mean we're getting arch infantry for rally garrison for the rest of the time? How's that going to work? If it's predictable, it means it's sort of same. So I don't know. We'll see. Even if they just told us, like, even if they were like, here's the calendar for the next X period of time. The problem is that if they do that, they can't change it. So I think it's too risky to do something like that. What happened to the new remastered map? Will there be updates in the future? We've been continuously testing and optimizing the remastered map. In future seasons, we'll gradually roll it out to each story, following the approach taken with the Heroic Anthem remaster. For the time being, we plan to remaster the original Kingdom map in Season 1 through 3 KVKs and use remastered maps in campaign game modes. All right. Is Ragnar Prime a part of the 10th generation of commanders? Will there be more ways to recruit him in the future? Ragnar Prime is not a part of the 10th generation. He's a special commander released alongside 2024 key story King of All Britain. We plan to introduce other special commanders in future key stories. So when new KVKs come out that are considered the sort of key story of the year, then we potentially get a new commander associated with that story. Prime Ragnar Lodbrok sculptures will be available via other channels, such as the daily special offers, through the specific, though the specific time they'll be added to these channels is to be determined. You know, I think what the developers are going to do here is they're going to use this as the way to reward old things. Like Ragnar Prime does something unusual. He's saying, hey, remember all that skill damage stuff you got for your infantry? It matters again, right? And we reward you for having done that. I wonder if that's how they'll use it in the future, where like now they've got all this healing archer stuff, and in the future, maybe they'll drop some archers that do skill damage as the sort of key story commander. Or for cavalry, right, some AoE skill damage. Because like, you know, everybody moved all in on Wedge, which is a very logical thing to have done with the way the game design pointed. Like at the time, all of your troop types cared about Wedge. So it was the most logical thing to do to pull Wedge. Whatever. I think this is a great update. I think this is amazing. I feel like I've been saying that a lot recently, and the developers are just really, I feel like, listening to player feedback and addressing things. So cool to see this get implemented. I love this. This is all fire and makes me really excited. And if I'm honest with you, I'm probably more excited about the game now than I have been in the last year or two, maybe. Like, I don't know. Like when you collect things and then those things retain their value, or new ways of their providing value are delivered to you as a player, for me, it just lit me up. I love it. And it's really cool. Now, on the topic of lighting things up, we're in KVK here, and they've been trying to rally our forts, and they're just killing their farm troops. But people always want to see like, hey, how's KVK going? What's it looking like? I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. 212 to 602. And, you know, the kill point ratio there is pretty nice. This is overnight while I was sleeping. Well, this is this morning, actually. 215 to 614. This one, oof, this was kind of brutal. We got a new captain in there, so we're big chilling now. But this is the kind of trade we need to not be taking. And you know, it's going to happen. We got a bunch of forts, 2 coalitions. It's GG's. Then this is good, and then this is good. So you know, and overnight I don't have a rune. I don't have anything fancy here. This looks like it happened shortly after I went to bed, but no, I was in there all night, garrisoned, cooked up some pretty sweet reports while I was sleeping. No rune, most likely. No kingdom buffs, no titles. I guess what I mean by that. Yeah, no, I mean. And then, okay, so this is Cortex's city. That was fun. I'm pretty sure I was on stream when I did this. They rallied Cortex, I got in his city. Maybe this wasn't on stream. Yeah, no, I mean, find out, you know. Another city reinforcement. It's been a fun 24 hours for sure. I mean, you know, I said this would be the case, but the combination of 2934 open field, which is like, they are absolute freaking maniacs out there. They're monsters. Combined with the garrison and rally top end, plus our territory management in 2293 is honestly just fire, man. Like, it is just a magical combo. And like, every one of these garrisons absolutely slaps. And, you know, some are more optimized than others, but I think I've even got a few reports that were sent to me earlier from Humble Farmer, right? With the new CY Hera garrison. And if you were wondering, like, does it work? Yes. Yes. It does the thing. I mean, if you want me to click on all these reports, I can kind of click through all of them. 154 to 634. Hey, yo. But they're just running it down. Like, they're taking these rallies, they're running it down. They're killing off their farm troops. And so they're sort of hoping that, like, we fill with mains and they fill with farms. But, like, as it turns out, we have farms too. But this is not even, like, perfect armaments yet. But this is pretty sick testudo formation. This is very impressive still. Even though, like I said, it's not perfect yet. He's still got a couple things he's working on. But, like, he's got these legendary inscriptions here that are absolutely fire. And, you know, when he re-rolls these to be archer attack, like, this set's pretty scary, right? Like, it's pretty good. And, you know, there'll be room to grow with this. Obviously, this is just 2 of the legendary inscriptions. You can have 4 in total. And being able to transfer over inscriptions, like we were talking about, is going to make it so that these commanders, like, if you think about it, we were on a crash course for a huge problem. And that huge problem was that they would release new commanders, but the only way for them to be balanced with is if they account for the best you can do with a formation, but nobody would have it for a long time. So they would basically release new commanders and they'd be guaranteed to be flops unless they make them base overpowered, because otherwise nobody would have the stuff you would need to actually maximize them yet. You see where I'm going with this? So the options were either make each commander release super overpowered to offset the fact that nobody would have the armaments, or you'd end up in a situation where, like, new commander releases would always seem really bad compared to what they would ultimately become. And I think the better solution is kind of the route they're going, where they're like, okay, we're just going to make it easier for you to get the new stuff. Because otherwise, like, every new commander release has to be imbalanced. Otherwise, the new drops are just going to be no good. I do think the CY with Hera is better than the Gorgo with Hera, though. And if I jump back in here, I should point to his equipment as well, because we were looking at those trades. But yeah, his equip's pretty good, right? The only thing I think, oh, he's got, look at that, leadership stuff. The only thing I think you could do to probably level this up would be if you had KVK, helmet, and weapon both crit and iconic to at least, like, tier 4 potentially. Like, it'd take a lot to beat the archer set here. The archer set's very good in this instance, especially. So, although, bro, I think the Dragon Breath set actually, I just discovered this. Dragon's Breath set needs to be fixed. It does 3% skill damage. I mean, How's that supposed to work with all the true damage stuff, right? I think they're going to have to update that like they did with the infantry stuff to say skill damage and smite damage. I think they need to update this to say true damage as well. That like kind of doesn't make sense. I only just realized that. I bet they'll update that. I bet they will. If you enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. I am genuinely more excited about this game than I have been in a long time. And I think it's these quality of life improvements that, like, quite literally month after month, they are demonstrating that they're hearing this critical feedback about the game direction and actually going in a good direction with the game. And I feel like it reflects a mentality shift that is really positive for players. I think this is amazing. I'm very happy with this. If you enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here, subscribe to the channel. If you want to see the KVK pass opening, I'll have a card over here. Yes, there. Which way am I pointing? Over here in just a second. I have my camera reversed, YouTuber stuff. Until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies. Take care, everybody.